Hi, everybody. Today we are excited to share with you our presentation for our proposal in doing business in Mexico. We also have 3 products that we have looked into starting businesses with in Mexico, and we will share those towards the end of our presentation. I'd also like to give credit to our production team for their extensive research so that we were able to put this presentation together. Krista Blair, Karen Riddle, James Clark, Ammon Lewis, Jennifer Vasquez, and myself, Katie Peterson. As a team, we've analyzed nearly every aspect of business from culture to economy in Mexico. We will start our presentation by going over the cultural differences between Mexico and the United States. We do this by looking at the Hofstede dimensions. They are a set of 6 cultural dimensions: power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. As you can tell here, purple indicates the United States and blue indicates Mexico. The biggest difference lies in individualism. And this is the one that we would like to focus on the most, especially as we are going through the rest of the presentation today. Individualism is the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. Mexico is much more concerned with the group rather than the individual. This results in a great deal of loyalty with people within the group. This differs greatly from the United States, where individuals are looking out for individuals. It would be necessary to understand this group mentality, where individual performance is less important than their group dynamic. As you can see, the only thing that we are really close together on is long-term orientation. There are some differences, but the biggest one and the one that needs to be recognized and dealt with the most is individualism. Going on to communication and scheduling culture, you'll be able to see why individualism is so important. The biggest thing with the Mexican culture is their family. Family is put first above everything else. They usually don't work on the weekends because of family times. Holidays are strict, no working days so that you can spend it with family. And this cultural aspect has helped form the Mexican culture around being very flexible with their time. And this really differs from the United States. They're not afraid to put off tasks or jobs to spend time with families. And they also don't like confrontation generally. So the whole culture tries to avoid arguments or disagreements. So this applies not only to family life, but also to work life. Because they are so accustomed to their family life and sugarcoating things and avoiding arguments, this is the same way they need to be dealt with in business. So that needs to be kept in mind because they are very sensitive. It can be very helpful. They can be very helpful and very friendly, but you do need to gain their trust, just like any relationship, but it should definitely be focused on even more in this relationship. And if you offend them, also, just like anybody, it can be very hard for you to work with them and do business with them. So being very polite in your communication is very important in Mexico. Negotiation techniques really go along with the last slide. Being patient, being polite, not being too direct, but when you're being direct, be indirect, if that makes sense. And Ammon has set up a 6-rule kind of guideline when going through negotiation. Share your information, order your priorities, go in knowing your target price and your walkaway terms, make the first offer. Don't counter too low, meaning make sure you know your product, you know the numbers, you're not offering anything that's unrealistic, and then counter offers make both parties more satisfied. So this is a general negotiation technique, but in Mexico, you need to make sure, again, that your communication is very polite, somewhat indirect, and you're putting your point across in a way that is respectful of both parties. If you show that you value their family, their time, and their group as a whole, you will be much more successful. Now we want to get into the government and politics of Mexico. So Mexico is a federal republic consisting of 31 states. And recently, President Obrador was elected. And this has been very revitalizing to the country with its platform concentrating because he's concentrating on reforming policy to tackle corruption, crime, and poverty. And he has also promised entrepreneurial freedom. So this has been super positive for the Mexican economy, and everyone is super excited about it. However, a recent tariff standoff with the United States is causing a little bit of unrest in the business sectors. So that is something definitely to keep an eye on, and we always need to stay updated on that movement. However, we are hopeful that regulations can be made between our two countries because of the strong relationship that we have together. Going on, we wanted to look at the business environment as a whole. In doingbusiness.org, it ranks all these countries against each other, and there are 190 different countries, and Mexico ranks 54th out of all of them. Obviously, that's not the best, but it's also a lot better than a lot of other countries. And there really are some perks to doing business in Mexico. The first one is contract processing. Mexico ranks 43rd, and this really shows how effective Mexico is, because even though that may sound like a long time, 350 days, is how long it takes to process. There are other countries that can take 4 times that long, and that would be very difficult when wanting to start a business. So the ease of starting a business is ranked just below half. So it wouldn't be unrealistically easy, but it also shouldn't be too hard. One big law is that taxes are very high. It can be like 35% for residents, and for non-residents, which would be us, would be even higher. So I recommend caution in that area, which is registering property, can be very onerous and time-consuming and tedious. Overall, there are no huge hurdles that can't be overcome when doing business in Mexico. Mexico is part of the World Trade Organization, and they are also part of NAFTA, which deals with us the most. So the North American Free Trade Agreement. It's the US, Canada, and Mexico. So this agreement is almost tariff-free. We talked about the staff they were having with the United States. I just want to note here, the US and Mexico have probably the most significant trading relationship. So 47% of imports to Mexico are supplied by the United States. 80% of exports from Mexico go to the US. So this really shows how strong our relationship is, how much we depend on each other. And this is promising and wanting to start a business. It would be ideal to start a business in a country that you already have such a strong relationship with. Foreign direct investment. So Mexico has the most FTAs, or one of the most FTAs than all the other countries. In the last couple of decades, it has truly changed from a very closed economy to a very open economy. And this really has an impact on foreign direct investments because it makes it a lot easier for countries to come in and do business. There are 2 types of foreign direct investments. The first is horizontal, and that is building the exact same business you're currently running in your home country, in Mexico in this case. And vertical is when you have a similar business to what you're already running, or one that enhances your business. They correlate, but not directly, or they're just not the exact same business. So our caution here is that although it can be an amazing thing to have Mexico be such an open economy, it also makes it easy for other businesses to come in and from other countries, and it can create strong competition. So the current economic conditions, we want to look at 4 different charts here. There's the GNI per capita, GDP growth annual percentage, inflation, consumer prices, and lending interest rates. So it's important to look at all 4 of these charts, because when you look at the GNI and it's just been constantly growing the last 4 years, it looks good and it looks like the national income is doing great. But when you look at the other charts, for example, the GDP growth chart, it's pretty sporadic. It's not consistent, which may mean your product may do really well one year, but then not the next. And then if you look at the inflation consumer prices annual percentage, this shows that the inflation rate has increased significantly in the past couple of years. And this would make it seem that it's not the most stable market. So it would be wise to use some caution. Knowing this, use great caution before entering the market in Mexico. And lastly, currency. We all know the currency in Mexico is the peso. So it has had struggles in the past. However, thanks to the election of President Obrador, he has really helped revitalize the country. And this has strengthened the peso. Understanding that the trend toward peso gaining on the dollar, policies will need to put in place to ensure required profit margins are realized. If a serious gain in the peso occurs, it could mean a substantial loss of revenue if not properly addressed. So this is an important thing to keep your mind on. And then we want to go through three different products that we have set up. So the first one is drone crop dusting, and this is organic crop dusting, which is recently been, the standards have been set by the Mexican Secretariat of Agriculture. And Mexico is a huge agricultural environment. And so this could be a huge option and do really well. The barriers would be the cost. It costs a lot to make them. There's no market currently for them in Mexico, but that would be also a good thing in that there's no competition. So these are things to look at. We think that this is a great product and can definitely be considered and taken further. The second product is a washing machine. The need here is that Mexico in some places is a developing country, and people aren't able to wash their clothes or can't afford nice washing machines. So this is kind of the middle ground. It's a cheap option to efficiently wash your clothes. It helps get rid of diseases and helps you to be clean, which limits health and cleanliness issues. The barriers are maybe the poorer areas just really can't afford it, and they wouldn't be willing to put their money on something that rivers and streams can offer them. Although it's not as effective, they probably wouldn't be as open to it. And lastly, our third product is the human GPS. So much human trafficking goes on in Mexico. They need it. It's a safety, huge safety issues. And this has already been done in some officers. And the bad thing about it, the barrier would be financials. It costs about $2,000 to get it put in, and then $2,000 every year afterwards just for having it. So, and also human morals. People just might feel weird about doing it. There really isn't any competition. There's already the one started going in the officials, but this is also another product to consider when doing business in Mexico. So this is what we have for you guys today. We hope that it is helpful. And if you have any questions or anything you would like to ask, we are totally open and welcome to those. So thank you for listening, and we hope you have an awesome day.